Alright guys, what I want to do in this video is review some of the most important concepts we learned in the topic called problem solving techniques. Now, as we get more sophisticated with our techniques in C# and we write bigger and bigger programs, we have to figure out ways to make them more efficient and more organized. Every command I've taught you up until this topic called problem solving, you could write most computer programs except for like graphics, but they might end up being thousands and thousands of lines. So what we tried to do now is learn techniques that will reduce those lines by making things more efficient. And the first technique that we learn is called methods. And I ran this little program, and it's kind of a corny program, but I'll use this as my justification for making programs more efficient. So basically, without the method, it's basically printing out the words to a song. Okay, and you think, okay, big deal, nothing spectacular, and you're right. It basically goes through those. Now, if we go into the underground and look at the code, what you're going to see is some pretty ugly and repetitious code, and that's the key word. If you find commands that you keep repeating when you're making a computer program, that might be a little signal to use something else. Now, you notice here we've got text song, and then, oh, there's these two lines. And then a few minutes later, oh, there's these two lines. They're the same lines. And then a few minutes later, oh, there's these two lines. So if you find yourself writing computer programs that repeat formulas or some sort of calculation or anything else over and over again, that's your signal to use this new idea we're going to teach you today called a method. And what happens with a method is you take these two lines, it could be 20 lines, and you put them in a special section in your computer program. Now this you have to handwrite yourself, as opposed to when you double click and it puts in stuff. So let me go down to the bottom of the program. Alright, so what we're going to start doing now is making these things called methods. And what you do is you by hand, you actually type in the word private, and then this word void means that this method, basically you go there, it does something, and it doesn't return an answer. There's two kinds of methods. I'm going to show you the second kind in a minute. Then you make up a name. You can make up any name you want for this method. Alright? And then what happens is you put in here the stuff that was repeating in your program above. Alright? Now, what you'll see in my second button is basically the same program, except the spots where there was those message boxes with oh my darling, now what I've done is replaced it by this command here. And what this is going to do is tell the computer, listen, every time you get to this spot in the computer, instead of you writing down those two lines, go down to the verse method, which is way down at the bottom, do these two things, and then come back. Alright? And then do whatever's next, like do the next 4 or 5 lines, and then when you get to this, do it again. Now you're going to say, sir, that only saved you one line because it was only 2 lines there. Yeah, but what if there would have been 50 lines that you kept repeating and repeating and repeating? Well, you only have to write that one thing and then put those 50 lines in their own special section. Now what I'm going to do, just to show you the mechanics of how this works, I'm going to press F11. And if you remember what that is, that's how you step through a program. And it's a little bit slow at the beginning because it goes in the background of the computer and goes through all these little commands that are going on before you even realize your program's running. I'm pressing F11 like a million times here. Then I get into the main program, and now I'm going to press this button. Okay, and I'm going to keep pressing F11, and it does all those commands. The most important idea I want to show you with this stepping is the following. See how it dropped down to there when you called the message verse? Okay, or the method called verse. Then it does that. Now watch what happens when it hits that last squiggly line. It's going to go back up to where it was called. See? It always returns back from where it was called and then continues on its way again. And then when it hits this, it goes down to the method again, does whatever it has to down here. Math formulas, and these are just like basic print statements. And then it always returns to where it was called and keeps going. The second method that you can use is one that actually you go to it and you do some sort of math calculation and you return that answer to somewhere that you need it. Let me give you an example, and this was called simple methods, this program. So I just press this button, a little input box comes in, and I'll type in 23 and 10, and what it does is works out what those two times together equal, right? So you could have done that yourself, obviously, but what I want to do is show you how it was done with a method. And again, the two advantages of our method are that they save lines sometimes, or sometimes it's just a more organized, sort of a structured way to do a solution. So it doesn't always save you lines, but it's a more organized way to do things. So let's go into the underground here and take a look at how we do this one. So this one, I basically asked the person for two numbers, all right? Then there's this new thing here. I invented a method called multiply, and then there's these two things in brackets. That's kind of weird too. And what those two things in brackets mean are you're going to pass down to this special method that you made two numbers, okay? So whatever you type in for the first number, it's going to go right there where the x is. Whatever you type in for the second number, it's going to go right there where the y is. So now you've gone to this special method called multiply. It's taken in your two numbers. So let's say your first number was 7 and the second number was 10. It'll take those two numbers, send them down to here. Now, I use different variables here. So where the x is, now that's the 7, and where the y is, now that's the 10. And then the computer works out 7 times 10, which is 70, and then it returns the answer to here. Okay, and then the answer goes in result, and you print out the answer 70. This is the second kind of method. This method returns. Okay, so you notice it's a little bit different. See that word int there? I'm returning an integer. Before you had this word void, which means don't return anything. Okay, so those are the two kinds of methods. Ones that have some variable type there, like integer, string, double, or something, and the other kinds with void. And these ones always have the word return. All right, now, after I return this answer, I use this other method. This method does not return an answer, so you notice it doesn't have an equal sign on one side of it. This one just says, go and do this display thing, and that's it. So when it goes down to display, there it is down there. This is the kind that I taught you in the first example. This is the kind with void. Now, the only difference in this example is that, like the last one, this is going to send down some answers. Okay, so where the f is, it's going to give you the first number. Where the s is, it's the second number. And the result that we worked out, 70 in this example, goes in where the answer is. And those get printed out in the different spots. Okay, but there's no return in this one. It just went there, did it, and then printed out the answer on the screen, and that was it. So that's the second kind of method. All right, now let's take a look at some problems associated with using methods. And the first one I'm going to do with you that I also did in class was this one where you're going to ask the person for the length and width and height of a box, and you're going to invent a method called volume, and it's going to return the answer volume, and you can display it. The second example will figure out whether a number that you pass it is even or odd. All right, so I'm going to drop this down for a second, and we're going to use the program I was just in called Simple Methods, and I've put two buttons on it, and I'm going to use that because I can take the input boxes from there to make my life a bit easier. Okay, so let me go into the underground. Okay, so this first one, basically I'm going to ask them three questions. So I'm going to ask them integer the length, and integer the width, which I'll spell wrong, and integer the height. And we are going to work out the volume, okay, which I'll call vol. Okay, so those are the things that I'm going to work out. Now what I'm going to do is come up here, and I'm going to grab a couple of these, save me a bit of time, and I'm going to copy them and take them down here. Okay, so this is the way you should do your homework assignment after too. So I'll paste them in here. Of course, this one I'm going to ask for the length. This will be the width. Okay, and I'll need one more, so I'll paste twice, but I won't need the second paste. So this one here will be the height. Okay, and I'll move this over a bit. So remember, this is the length, so I'll put the word length there. Okay, this is the width, and I'll spell it the way I spelt it. And the last thing is the height, HT. All right, so that's the first part. We've got those all ready to go. Now what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go down to the bottom somewhere, underneath here. Don't put yourself in anything inside the squiggly brackets. Remember this stuff that was up here, private, int, all that kind of thing? What you're going to do down here is you're going to go private, int. I'm going to invent a formula called volume. And it's going to accept 3 things from the person. And I'm going to take those 3 things and I'm going to put them into 3 variables that I just made up like that. Okay? Then you put always squiggly line, squiggly line. Okay? Now, in here you can say int answer if you want. We'll start it off at 0. And then the answer is going to equal x times y times z. That's how you work out the volume. And then remember, these kind of things you always have to return the answer. Now, where's this answer returned to? Well, right here. And I have a variable called volume, so it's going to be volume, and you have to spell it right. Okay, so volume, bracket, and you pass it down to this special method that we invented, the answer. Okay, now they're not getting any errors, so things are going good. And then at the end you say message box.show the volume is, and then you attach the answer, and you use that to string stuff. Okay, let's try it out, see if I've made any mistakes. Alright, so we press this button. We ask for the length. I'll type in some easy ones that I can work out. 3, 2, so 3 times 2 is 6, times 4, 24. Works. Okay, so that's the basic idea. The second example is sort of a math question and not a math question. This one asks you to feed it a number, and then you have to figure out whether it's even or odd. Now notice that you return a word. Like you send it down a number, but you return a word. So that's important to realize. So watch what we're going to do. So I've already pre-done some of this. Okay, so I've said, okay, I'm going to ask for a number, and there it is. Now I have to invent this thing called even odd. Now it's going to return a word. So you actually say the word string there, and then even, odd, and in the bracket you're accepting a number, which I will call n. All right, so that's a little bit different. So you're feeding it in a number, but you're returning a string. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to say something like the following. If, and you go n, and this is %2 equals 0. That means if you divide it by 2 and there's no remainder, then we're going to return the word even. Okay? Else, alright, so you have to know all your if statements still. Else, return, quotes, odd. Alright, so it's kind of like you do a bit of math, but you also have to return a word. Alright, and there it is right there. Let's see if it actually works. So right here now, what I'm going to do after I accept a number, I'm going to say the following. It's going to be cool the way I'm going to do it. Watch it. Message box.show, and I'm going to just have the word even odd come up here. Now watch what I'm going to do it. I'm going to go right inside the message box, and I'm going to go even, odd, bracket, number, all in one shot. Alright, and what that's going to do is it's going to feed this number down to here to the n. Alright, let's say the number's 6, right? And I'm going to take that number, divide it by 2, and see what's left over. When you divide 6 by 2, it goes in 3 times and 0 left over. So it should say that it's even. Alright, let's test it out. Okay, so you press this button, you type in a number, let's say 6, even, good. Let's try 7, odd, good, so it works. Okay, so there's the 2 kinds that you should be familiar with. One, you send down numbers and it comes back with a number. This one, called even odd, you send down numbers, but it comes back with words. Alright, so nice applications of this new idea called methods.